All right, so here I'm going to go through the test number 1 questions. I know some of you did corrections, but in case you just needed a little bit more review. So first off, my question numbers might not match yours, but the questions themselves are still the same. So anyway, on the first one, which pair of numbers answers are both between 6 and 7? Well, one thing you can do is you can think of, well, 6 squared is 36, and 7 squared is 49, because the square root of those are the square root parts. So if you look at the answer choices, you can look for which ones are between 36 and 49. That's one option. Or with your calculator, you can sit there and find the square root of each. So this would come out to be 5.47, 6.48. This one's 6 and 7. It doesn't want to know which ones are between. So it's not that one. The next one we have is 6.48 and 6.92. And the last one we have 6.08 and 7.07. So looking at those 3 remaining answers, the one that is between 6 and 7 is that answer choice. All right, so let's move on to the next one. So now we want to list these orders in descending order. Well, if I'm ordering my numbers, I want to convert them into the same form, and decimals would most likely be the easiest. So if I do the negative square root of 2, that gives me negative 1.4. Over here, this is going to give me negative 1.5. That's already a decimal. And then I have negative 3.14. So descending order is going to be greatest to least. Now I'm looking on my negatives, so the smaller the absolute value of a negative number, the greater it actually is. So this number right here will be your greatest value. Okay, not the pi, not the negative pi. Negative pi is the least. Next problem. Okay, again, what is the approximate value of the square root of 155 rounded to the hundredths place? Well, pull out the calculator, type in square root of 155. When you do that, it will give you 12.449. I always like to out 3 numbers just in case I have to go to the hundredths place, but it says to the nearest tenths. Well, the 4 right here says to leave that first 4 as a 4. So your answer was 12.4. That is it. Okay, now this next one. Some of you ended up doing a lot of work on this problem, but I did tell you when we went over it in class, all you had to pay attention to was this part right there, the exponent piece. So if I look a little bit closer, now just at the exponents, I've got 24, 23, 27, 26. If it's asking which has the smallest mass, now out of those 4 planets, well, Mars has the smallest exponent, so that means Mars has the smallest mass. That's all you had to do. I have no numbers written out. I didn't need to. That's just pay attention to the exponents when you're comparing scientific notation. All right, next. Which inequality symbol makes the statement true? Well, if I'm going to compare numbers, I want them to be in the same form. I say this over and over again. So the square root of 81 is 9. 3 squared is the same thing as 3 times 3. So that's going to also equal 9, which means the inequality that you should have chosen was equal. Okay, next. Which of the following statements is always true? Always true. Every rational number is also an irrational. That is never true, because when you have your picture, you have your rational numbers here, which is your Q, and then you have your separate irrational numbers over there. So they are never connected. So that's no good. Every whole number is also a natural. But when I have my circles here, Here's my z, that's my integers, then I have my whole, and then I have my naturals. So are every whole number, are all of those, are all of these whole numbers inside this little shape? No. So that is not true. Now every integer is also a whole number. So again, here's my integers, the z. Are all of those inside this smaller shape? No. And now the last one says every natural number. So all of these natural numbers here, are all of those inside the bigger integer shape? Yes, they are. So this is the answer you would have wanted to choose. Continuing on. Some more scientific notation. Now the table below shows the weights of pounds of 3 animals. Okay, which of the following represents the weight of the butterfly? So all I care about is the butterfly. Butterfly here. Well, if I'm looking at the butterfly, scientific notation, remember the first factor has to be a number between 1 and 10. So when I just look at that part, I could already eliminate all of my answer choices and pick the correct one, which would be this one. Because 62.5 is not between 1 and 10, 625 is not between 1 and 10, and 0.625 is definitely not between 1 and 10. All right, so another real number problem. Which answer choice includes all the number sets that the negative square root of 64 belongs? So guess what I did first? I converted square root of 64 and I got negative 8. Then I took that and I looked here at the picture. Well, n stands for my counting numbers, so it's not in that section. Whole is my counting numbers and 0. Integers are my counting numbers, 0, and their opposites. So this is where the number negative 8 would start. And so if it starts in the integers, it is also considered a rational. So that would be the answer choice that was Q and Z. Next. So another real numbers. We have here, which of the following Venn diagrams best displays the relationship between rational and irrational? And just before I drew my little picture I had here, these were my rationals and all the other parts inside. And then I had my irrationals over here. So they are never connected. These are no. Let's see. This one, no. And so it's got to be this very last answer choice right here where they are separate from each other. Next one. Two numbers are shown on the number line, here and here. Which value is not located between these two numbers on the number line? All right, here I go again. I'm going to convert my numbers into decimals. So I'm going to calculate square root of 9 divided by 3, and that's going to equal 1. That's going to equal 1. And 2 times pi, so 2 times 3.14 is going to equal 6.28. Okay, so these are my numbers that I want to find out which is not located between those two. So I'm going to do the pi squared divided by 9. When I do that, I get 1.09. Square root of 9 comes out to be 3. Pi divided by 9 gives me 0.348. And pi is 3.14. Okay, so if I were to put these on the number line, my first one would be maybe here. My second one would be maybe around there somewhere. My third one would be about somewhere there. And my fourth answer would be in here somewhere also. So my third, that was my third answer choice, was the only one that was outside those lines based off my decimal values. That's the answer I would pick. Okay, another one. So, which point on the number line best represents the location of square root of 92? Put that in the calculator. Square root of 92, it will tell you is 9.59 and some other numbers after that. That should be enough. So that's 9 point something, so it's got to be within 9 and 10. Now here is 9.5, so this one is closer to 9.5 compared to the other one, which is closer to 10. So my answer is going to be choice P. Okay, a couple more. So here, click and drag. Well, this one was a little bit tricky, but this was the ascending order. Oh, ascending order is least to greatest. So this would have been my least, and then this would have been my greatest down here. Okay, but still, if I did that, I would have to convert my numbers. So if I were to divide these, I'd get 6.166. That's already a decimal. This one would come out to be negative 5.2, and then this one, 5.74. So if I had to put them in order from least to greatest, I would look at my negatives first, because those are going to be the lower of the 4. So between these two, okay, they both start with a -5, then I'll look at the first digit after the decimal, and remember on the negative side it's backwards, so this one is actually going to come first, and then this one. And so then I could order my positives, so this would be my lowest of my positives, and this one. So I would have rearranged those and placed them in the order least to greatest. Next one, more scientific notation. So I have here, which of the following has the number 3.58 times 10 to the -4 correctly written? Well, I did show some of you that were following along that you could type this in the Desmos calculator and it will tell you your answer. So if you're not sure how to do that, you could of course ask me, but if you don't ask me, then you know, you're on your own. So one thing I'm at least going to pay attention to here is the exponent. So if I have a negative exponent, my answer should be a number less than 1. So when I look at the answer choices, it can't be that one and it can't be that one. The remaining two are the values that are less than 1. So -4 tells me I'm going to move my decimal 4 places to the left. So 1 place, 2, 3, 4. And now I'm going to fill in with zeros in those spaces, so I should have decimal and 3 zeros. So here's the decimal, that has 4 zeros, decimal, 3 zeros. There is my answer. Okay, 2 more questions. Every integer is always a rational. So let me do my little quick drawing here. Remember, this was rational, then you had your integers, then you had your whole, and then you had your natural. So is every integer, here's the integer, a rational? So is this integer shape always inside of the rational shape? Yes, it is. So that statement is true. Okay, now for the last one. The last one looks a little busy, but still, I'm ordering or comparing numbers that are not in the same form right now. So the first thing I would want to do is put them into the same form. So then I can decide which of the number lists are less than -0.94. Okay, well, -15 divided by 16 will come out to -0.9375. Okay, then I've got 97%, that's going to be 0.97. And now I have -2 2 2/5, that's going to be -2.4. Okay, so they're all converted. Now looking at my answer choices, well, less than -0.94, that means my answer's got to be a negative. So if the answer's got to be negative, I should not pick the answer choices that have those positives. So I'm just down to 2 options. All right, well, I know from here I'm going to get rid of those positive numbers. Those are no good. Which of these numbers is less than 0.94? Well, the bigger the absolute value on the negative side, the smaller it is. So we want to look for numbers that are bigger than 0.94. So this one's bigger than 0.94. This one is as well. This one is not, but this one is. So if we have an answer that has those three numbers, that's what we want to choose. Okay, so those are the questions from test number 1. Hopefully, if you were catching on to something, you got something now. If you're doing the retest, make sure you ask me any questions before you started, and I will be glad to help you. Good luck.